here. Cindy is a major gift officer for Mary Bridge, and Mary Bridge, of course, is the recipient of the Courage Classic fundraising monies that funnels through the Mary Bridge Foundation to the Child Abuse Intervention Department. And most importantly, the Courage Classic is a Rotary event. A lot of people forget that. I think everyone knew that at one point. I'm going to show a short video that does talk about the history of it. But this is a Rotary event that rose out of just a desire to do more in our local community for an atrocity that occurred in 1990-91. And the Rotarians got together and said, it's enough. Let's do something to better affect and better treat the most vulnerable children in our community. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later. I know that we have a time schedule to keep, so I'm going to show the video and then we can talk about the nitty-gritty of the ride. Hopefully.
Everybody here is just so positive, and we're doing it for such a good cause.
It's a wonderful event, wonderful fundraiser.
It's a great ride. The people are super nice. It's just so beautiful. It's a great event for a great cause, so we love it.
Woo! That's boring when you go to the rides after this.
It's the best ride in the Northwest.
Mary Bridge is a place that's near and dear to my heart because my daughter, and so I've kind of taken it on as my own little personal way to give back to Mary Bridge every year.
It's about the kids. It's about taking care of our children and taking care of our most vulnerable children. We are the Sexual Assault Center for Kids here in Pierce County. We're part of Mary Bridge, and all of the services here are free. Everything they could need, we have available to them.
The incidence rates are really staggering. We see over 500 children a year here in our facility.
We see mostly sexually abused kids, and then we actually do clinic appointments and have the kids come in, talk to the parents, talk to the children, and then do an exam. It's sort of their first step into recovery.
Support from the Courage Classic has allowed the Child Abuse Intervention Department at Mary Bridge to grow from a clinic that was on the third floor in the health center years ago into this wonderful Children's Advocacy Center model where we have our own building that supports children, provides a holistic approach, and includes a multidisciplinary team of professionals to intervene when a child is maltreated.
For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So for every time somebody does absolutely horrible to a child, you have to do something to counter that and make it positive. So, we ride.
This is the kind of project that a service club loves. You work hard, but altogether we're expecting that there will be $700,000 added to the Rotary Foundation for children at Mary Bridge. And that's really a worthwhile project and a great payoff.
I think it's a lot of fun to do this for the riders, and we really appreciate what the riders are doing. We've put out a fantastic spread of food and refreshments, and it really means a lot to us. We get probably 75% of our club members up here to participate in this, so it's just a great time. It is exactly what I thought it was going to be, but a little better, because they said, oh, the great thing is you got to do the stops. You got to do, and I'm not a stopper kind of guy. I get on that bike and want to pound right through and get done and look at the clock and say I finished. And it was really hard, that first stop, to actually pull over. And when I did that, I really experienced what the Courage Class is all about. It's about this sense of community, and you know, the people giving you the food and the snow cones and everything. So I'm glad I did.
when I participate in the Courage Classic. The spirit there is just something that is amazing.
Their energy is infectious.
Everyone is there for the kid.
These are the kids' superheroes. And they're out here doing the hard work, getting us money so that we can keep helping the kids in our community.
It's a lot of fun and I recommend everyone join it.
We all do it together and raise money.
You gotta get the word out, you gotta talk about it, you gotta, make people aware.
Talk to one friend and you're riding as well. And then we've doubled our numbers.
It really does make a difference for Mary Bridge to be out here raising this kind of money for the kids and having a great time while we do it.
All these people are big supporters out here. So our part's a little part, but every little part helps.
All for such a great cause. We're so totally committed to it. You sense that every single step of the way.
So I will say,
That it's much easier. It's much easier to raise money for the body part causes. Diabetes, cancer, prevention and treatment, research. It's really hard to talk about child abuse and prevention. And I noticed that Brent created a flyer that's super helpful, just with the facts that are astounding. And we always think that it might be in some other part of town. It might be the east side or the south end. It's not next door to you, but I'm here to tell you that in the Tacoma public school system, 1 in 6 kids is treated for either neglect or abuse. 60% of the cases they see at the Child Abuse Intervention Department are for sexual abuse, and the majority of kids are under 6. So it's something it doesn't have a prejudice. It affects all of us in every neighborhood across town, and those statistics are pretty average for what you find across the country. So we're not an abnormal community. It's a topic that needs to have more conversation built around it. It needs to be out in the open. We need to be able to talk about it so that kids can speak up the minute they know that something's not okay. The funds that are raised through the Courage Classic, 100% of them go towards the Rotary Endowment. The Rotary Endowment over 24 years has grown to over $8 million. So it's not quite to the level yet where it's self-sustaining, but it's certainly headed in that direction, and that's our hope, is that we can create a self-sustaining endowment so that the Child Abuse Intervention Department never has to worry about funding. In the state of Washington, and probably across the country, treatment for sexual abuse cannot be covered by any of the insurances or public funding, like Medicaid or Medicare. And that has to do with the HIPAA and privacy laws, because you can't actually write down on a form what the case is. So most of these cases are treated through private funding and through this endowment, which makes up over 35% of the operating budget for the Child Abuse Intervention Department. So that's some pretty good money that stays really close to home and does some very big work. So we're so grateful to all the riders, to the Rotarians who come out and make the ride what it is, and of course to all of the donors who contribute year after year, either to the same rider or new riders. And oftentimes it gets exhausting to go back to the, for the riders to go back to their friends and family and say, I'm riding Courage Classic and we need to raise the money, but we need to keep reminding people why it's such important work. I'm going to have Cindy just talk for a quick minute about the ride itself and about some of the fundraising as well.
So we also have Scott who rides. So and Troy, you're one of your soon-to-be or current have you transferred over, Troy?
It's in transition.
In transition, so one of your newest members also rides. So you have, of course, Brett and Tom. Yeah, so you have about four people. You know, it's kind of like, why do we keep riding? This is my 10th year. Why do I keep riding? I asked my husband that. If I did not work for Multicare, would you want to ride? Would you ride this? Because he doesn't like organized rides. And he's like, this is the one ride I would ride, because we're helping these children that have no one to help them. Their parents obviously aren't there for them, or at least one of them is not, or some abuser who has been close to them in their life has hurt them. He says, I will ride for the cause, for sure. However, I always want to do something as well at the same time. I don't like raising money. You raise the money, and I will help. So he changes tires, and he has a ham radio, and so he's useful along the way. But truly, I was thinking about this. Yeah, he is actually. We kind of congregate him. You know how eagles fly? You see all those crows pecking? He's like, he's flying along, and we're all riding around him because we can hear the ham radio and what's happening up the top of the pass. It's kind of fun. But I wanted to share that working backwards, trickling down from those children that are helped, they would not be helped. We would not have the system we have now without this Rotary endowment. The Rotary endowment is fed by the riders. The riders, every rider raises $750 minimum. It's you that help make that happen. We ride not just for the cause, but we ride for the food also. You really just need to ride 20 miles, and then you start the next 20 miles, because each 20 miles you stop for food and community, and it is so much fun. And then you're like, okay, let's get back on, just off your runs, and ride the next 20 miles, because the next one you say, it's not such and such location, it's the root beers, or it's the ice cream. And then it is all of the people that go up and volunteer their time that support us. So thank you for doing the ice cream. I know you've been placed by another location, but the riders who are going to be coming to you on the Fat Tire are already looking for the ice cream, because I was telling Karlan this morning, they were complaining because last year they didn't get any because we were so far away from Easton. So we really do appreciate everything you do. And truly, when you support those riders, it affects 100% those children. So think about that when you support Brad and Tom and Troy next year. Yeah, right. Thanks.
Does anyone have any questions about the ride or the volunteerism or Rotary's involvement or the clinic?
Can I throw you a trick question?
Yeah.
Do you know what Rotary Club kind of had the first group of people that started the Courage Class?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Scott, because I will tell you that almost every Rotary Club claims a little piece of that beginning. Yeah, it's my understanding that it had some origin between Parkland and Lakewood, Clover Park. But having said that, every time I talk to somebody else, there's someone else that was at the table for the first conversation. So I think we should give credit equally across the board.
Tell us the story, Rick.
Yeah, no, France, the presidents started meeting. It was the year before that when that originated. And I wanted to figure out something that we could do as clubs. And so Francis Johnson and I went to Mary Bridge and talked to Jane Shannon. And Jane, because my wife was involved in orthopedic, and I wanted to know how Mary Bridge worked the orthopedics so well for so many years. And Jane just smiled and she said, we bought the rights. Would Rotary get involved in that? So Francis and I went back to the president's group, and then Mary Bridge provided a doctor for Francis. Francis spent a year and a half, went to every Rotary Club meeting, went to the executive committees, board meetings for those clubs, and it slowly started to build, and then Mike McGowan at Lakewood. And Mike said, okay, we're gonna do this. So they committed $100,000 to make that start. And then it was very easy to get, I shouldn't say it was very easy, but it was a lot easier to get the other clubs to become involved. So that's how it went together, but it was thanks to Jane and how that worked. And well, and I say that because when the international president was here and started, there were a lot of people getting a lot of kudos, and Jane stood up and she said, you know, these were her words, you know, you should be thanking Rick Carr because it is Rick and Francis Johnson that put this together and made it happen. So that's, and
there it is.
There were other people part of it.
So the only other ride that I know of for sure that's longer running in the state of Washington is the STP. Other than that, the Courage Classic has been going for a quarter of a century. So that's a really long-standing event with a continuous group of volunteers who many of whom have been there since the beginning. So it's a pretty great legacy.